All right. Welcome back to the Boxing Scorecard. I am your host, Cedric Benn, and I'm joined by my man, Lukey, and future world champion here, CJ. We got a few fights to go through here. First of all, Lukey, thank you for joining me. Really respect your boxing mind. I've been following you for a while, and that's the reason why I asked you to come on the show today. First of all, let people know where they can follow you on YouTube and on Twitter and wherever.
Well, first off, thank you for having me on. And also, I'm a big fan of CJ now. I liked his gesture he made. I'm pretty intimidated. You can find me on itrboxing.com. We got a YouTube channel as well. I have a Substack, Lukey Boxing, Lukie Boxing, all one word Substack. That's just simply fight schedules. And beyond that, a podcast. If you type in Lukey Boxing, there's a form of that. Try to record 3 hours of audio content with interviews and previews for just fight fanatics. So that's basically sums up everything I do.
There you go. So if you're a serious boxing fan, you're just in general, make sure you follow him, man. Keep up to date. All right, let's get right into it. Those 3 fights specifically I want to get into. Specifically talking about Triple G versus Murata, first of all. Good fight for Triple G. For the official, I should have got the official scorecard. I don't, but my official scorecard going into that 9th round was 78-74 for Triple G. I thought the first half of the fight. Well, sorry, you're the guest. I'll let you give your analysis first. And I'll go
okay, well, I feel honored. I get to do the take. I mean, pretty easy fight, I feel, to score. First round, I think, went to Golovkin. I'd say it was a swing round, but I think Golovkin was probably a little bit more effective. I think if you're coaching Murata or coaching Golovkin, that would be one I'd be like, fighting in someone else's country. That could be a shaky round if the fight gets close. I'm maybe a little too generous to the pressure Murata put on, but I thought rounds 2, 3, and 4 went to Murata. And I thought in 5, Golovkin completely took over the fight. I think he has an amazing jab. His power kind of was on full display where Murata was able to stand in front of him for 4 rounds. At the 5th round, he's like, dude, this guy hits really hard, started to not want to do it. And I'd say from rounds 5 until the point of the stoppage, which off the top of my head, I believe was the 9th, that was basically all Golovkin, and it was kind of gearing towards there's going to be an inevitable stoppage was what I got around round 7, where it's like we're getting to the point where I don't think Murata can make it to the end.
Yes, around 7, 8 is where just the body language for Murata with their hands up and not really returning fire, more in like a survival mode. Like, I'm not gonna take any risks, but at the same time, I'm just gonna focus on making sure you don't knock me out. That's what his body language was showing. I thought he actually looked good in the first couple of rounds. I still gave the first 2 rounds to Triple G. I specifically gave rounds 3 and 4 to Murata. My quick notes was Murata won that round with his pressure. I thought it was clear for Murata. In the 4th round, specifically, my notes were, now it looks like Triple G's backing up. Yeah, that's what it was. In the first couple of rounds, Triple G was, like you said, he was kind of going a little bit slower, backing up, but it looked like he was backing up at his own because he wanted to, just to kind of see what was going on. But in round 4, I felt that it was specific. He was backing up not because he wanted to, but because Murata was forcing him to with his extra pressure. But still, even the punches that Triple G was landing were definitely more effective. So that's what I thought the difference was. So, like you said, around the 6th or 7th round is when the punch effectiveness was really getting to Murata, and that's what was the beginning of the end, and it was that last punch in that 9th round that really stopped it. Thought it was a good stoppage by his corner. I really respect the coaches that don't just let their guy go to the end just for pride's sakes. You got to really think about their future, not about just the money. So I really respect Murata's corner for throwing in a towel when they did. Where do both guys go from here? Let's start with Murata first. He's 36 years old. He also came off of a long layoff. Where does he go from here?
Oh, just before I jump into that, I just wanted to add one little thing. Why I gave the second round to Murata was his body work, the body
Mm,
shots. I think that a lot of times we're talking about the pressure, but it seems like Murata had studied fights like Willie Monroe Jr. and other fights where Golovkin was receptive to body punching. So I think I was scoring towards those body shots early in the fight.
mm,
Where Murata goes, really famous Japanese fighter, one of the most critically acclaimed Japanese fighters, just more fights where he just fights in big arenas, and he's the guy that fought Golovkin and won a gold medal and had a world title for a time.
mm,
Just really famous guy fights. So whoever's at or around, I mean, here's a good fight that I think would be a good fight. How about him versus Chris Eubank Jr.? That's kind of like the
mm.
same tier of fighter, and that would be
Yeah,
a fun, exciting. That's the kind of fights that I think that Murata's at this point.
yeah, yeah. That would definitely make sense, especially at 36 years old. You want to make as much of your financially as you can in your last couple of years as a professional. Also, going back to the fight, I always remind people of this app. I don't know if you have an iPhone. It's only called JudgePad. You can only get it on iPhones, but I really appreciate it because you can actually make notes in between rounds and actually mark which rounds you thought were close rounds. Um, Round 5 and 6, I've specifically marked those as close rounds. My notes for round 5: Murata first half, GGG said F this and tries to bully him with the 2-arm shove. Not the 2-arm, like obviously in boxing, you can't like literally extend your arms and shove someone out, but like, sometimes when they're kind of inside, just kind of like just to get them off you, it's not full extension of your arms, but just kind of push them. Um, Kind of a bullying tactic, just to be like F you, get the F off me. At the same time, if you do that too much, that builds up the lactic acid in your arm. So you don't want to do that too much, but it's just kind of a sign to show you like you're not going to be pushing me around, and I'm coming back. So GGG started to do that, and his effectiveness started to come back. Landing, yeah, like I said, GGG landing a little bit more in round 6. Like I said, I marked both of those as close rounds, but even though I gave them both the triple G. Round 6, I wrote very close, was almost a 10-10, but if you get your mouthpiece knocked out, it should be a 10-8 round. Uh, so that's what I thought about that one there. I think that's a new rule. If you hit somebody so hard that their mouthpiece gets knocked out, it should be considered almost as a knockdown. If it counts as effectiveness of a punch. So, anyways, I talked about where does Murata go from here. I agree with that assessment. He's a star in Japan, so try to financially capitalize off that. Him and Eubanks would make sense in Japan or over in the UK.
I
Probably in
mean,
the
he's
UK.
got to do it in Japan. Like, I mean, maybe he does it in the UK, but I mean, we're looking at a guy who, if he leaves Japan, he's pretty irrelevant. But if he's in Japan, he's one of their major sports athletes. So, I
Mm,
mean, I'd assume anyone that fights him in Japan is on pay-per-view. And it's like, if you fight him in the UK, it's a domestic level fight. Has to be in Japan. Pretty fun fighter, right? Just loads up on punches and walks forward. So, I
mm,
mean, if you match him accordingly, he's the kind of guy that can be in some fight of the years. He's got what, maybe 2 fights left. So, I
yeah,
mean,
at 30. So how old is Eubanks? Late 20s?
younger, but I mean, he's like the thing with Eubanks is we're not sure the talent is there, but he's a really good athlete and he trains really hard. We just have never seen him kind of rise to those moments and fight an elite level fighter. And that offers him a chance to kind of get that respect he hasn't quite ever gotten in boxing by beating an A tier opponent. So, I mean, I think to me, that would be the most realistic win for Eubank
Mm.
would be a Murata.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah. Now for Mr. Golovkin, of course, this sets up the trilogy rematch with Canelo. I don't know, man. I don't know how that's gonna go. You never know. Triple G is one of those guys. Obviously, I've never personally met him, but I'm just assuming that he lives a healthy lifestyle outside of the sport when he's not fighting. I'm assuming he's not partying and drinking like some of these guys do and get really out of shape. So even though his 40 might be a different 40, it's still 40. Not even Michael Jordan was the same athlete at 40 years old. So I really don't know what my prediction is for the Canelo fight, especially with he looked a little bit shaky in the first couple of rounds with Murata. If that was Canelo, I don't know if that would be the same thing. What's your analysis for that?
I mean, it's probably going to be a really boring fight. Like whenever we get these fights where there's a lot of tension and trash talk and stuff, we tend up to get a lot of staring at each other and a lot of pride on the line and a lot of things that don't provide a lot of action. The action for this fight is going to be geniuses talking about the negotiation leverage and this guy paying this much and the fight week trash talk. But I think when we get in the ring, you're going to see Golovkin trying to fight a very tactical fight where he's trying to win 8 rounds and preserve himself. And I think Canelo, who has a ton of power, is also going to not just want to just walk into Golovkin's power, because if Golovkin's going to reemerge as the old Golovkin, it would be for Canelo. So I think what you're going to see in that fight would be two guys who don't want to lose to the other guy. And when you have those type of fights, there's a lot of moments where nothing's happening.
Would there be a little bit more pressure on Canelo to finish him off, being that Triple G is 40 years old and slightly slowing down? If Triple G pulls that one out, that would be a bigger win for Triple G as opposed to a win for Canelo. I think.
I mean, I don't think so. I think the fans are going to always make opinions, right? And it's great the fans have opinions. I love when fans have opinions, but I think the consensus feeling will be like Canelo's going to stop Golovkin, but we keep forgetting no one has dropped Golovkin. So it's like it's just because he's 40, nobody's dropping him yet. And yet there's this consensus feeling, oh, Canelo's going to stop him. And it's like, I don't see like if Golovkin's this close to the end of his career,
yeah,
even if he's losing, I feel like his goal would be, I'm not getting stopped in this fight. And I feel like it's kind of strange that there's this consensus feeling like, okay, he's slowing down. The guy that's never gotten dropped before is going to get knocked out by this generational, probably the best Mexican fighter. It's just it shows you how people's fandom and their love of the sport can kind of overtake them in moments.
Yeah.
But in that fight, I think it's actually what I would call a trap fight, because I think Golovkin's going to enter super motivated and Canelo actually might be over it, because Canelo's basically gotten his praises for beating Golovkin and doesn't really need to do it again. This fight is more so a favor for Golovkin, who feels he has unfinished business with Canelo. Canelo would rather ride off into the sunset because he doesn't really earn any, even if he stopped Golovkin, which would be amazing. Nobody's going to really give him credit for stopping a 40-year-old Golovkin. This is all Golovkin's opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah. Golovkin has this is his big opportunity. And it's kind of his whole career has kind of been based off waiting for Canelo, staying at 160 pounds for all those years, waiting for Canelo, and then finally getting those 2 shots, and now waiting for Canelo again. So this is he's focused. And I was listening to your show with the Mr. Montero and how in depth he was with Triple G, and just how different he is. His mentality is, as earlier in his career he was more laughy and jokey, and the how Triple G, and now he's more serious, which is what his character is the whole time. So that's the thing that makes me believe, opposite to what a lot of people are saying about him getting stopped, this motivation, this extra seriousness that he has. He doesn't really do any interviews anymore, and when he does, he's not laughing or joking. He's just all serious business. This you know what, I'm gonna say it right now. Triple G was an upset.
I want that to happen. I don't want to sound like Canelo hater, but it's like there's a part of me that would like, because I was never the biggest Golovkin guy, but I wanted to bring Montero on because he covered him, and I think that like sometimes we forget what Golovkin was. He is a Hall of Fame fighter. He's one of the most feared punchers of his era.
Yeah.
Is he Bernard Hopkins? No. Is he James Toney? No. But was he very because I think what turned me off at a point was people were like, he's Marvin Hagler. Well, he's not Marvin Hagler.
That's you're 100% right. Is that at some point in time, it wasn't him that turned me off. It was the fandom around him, like saying, I've seen a couple of lists that had him ranked higher than like Bernard Hopkins and Roy Jones and these people at 160. And I was like, this is getting out of hand. So but you're right. On his rise, I think he had like 30 some stoppages in a row. Like I don't even care if it's 33 bums in a row. You throw out that many people, stop that many people in a row. That is very impressive. So yeah, his rise to the top was very impressive.
And I think he's burnt out, right? Because I thought that he beat Canelo 2 times. A lot of people feel that Canelo got the second fight. I thought that he barely beat him in the second fight. And I think that he just feels like boxing is corrupt and he's over it. And I think that the only fight that, like, when I watched him versus Murata and these other guys, Golovkin's being a professional, but he seems very disinterested from the media to the fight. Like, it felt like until there was urgency and he was getting a fight thrown at him, he was like, I'm going to do whatever. And then it's like Murata probably landed something. He's like, oh, like you said, he pushed him. It's like, now I got to beat you up.
Yes,
Like, now I got to beat you up because this is getting annoying. It's a little too competitive, but you're not seeing like with Edgar Berlanga, right? Berlanga's gone in the ring the last 2 fights, and I don't see him believing in his power the way he believed in his power when he fought some of these guys earlier. And it's just more of a psychological change than it is a physical change. He doesn't think when the punch lands, when he throws the big right hand, Berlanga, I see him going, oh no, is this going to land the right way? As opposed to when I land this guy's out and I'm going to be doing the monster and all this.
Yeah, very interesting about Berlanga. My analysis with that, specifically that last fight, it was when I listened to his interview after the fight, that kind of made me question, because he was kind of blaming, whenever fighters blame the opponent, like whenever power punches don't get a knockout and they blame the opponent for running, that makes me kind of question, like, if that's all you're relying on. Like, there's other ways that you can set it up as far as cutting the person off or using your jab more. And that fight specifically where Berlanga and Rolls, who's just about lives for 45 minutes from here, Berlanga looked like he was literally just following him around. Like, just looked like he was expecting Rolls just to stand in that spot. He said, no, when he fought Triple G, he just stood there. He was expecting his opponent just to stand there like a heavy bag so that he could do that. And when he had to work for it, that was the frustrating part. Like, he didn't, like, as if he didn't really work on cutting the person off or using his jab. Like in training camp, all they just worked on was that knockout punch. I think Andre Ward said it too. It's like, everyone could be telling you the right things. Like, I'm sure people are telling him the right things, but if this is all kind of like Wilder, if this is all that's been working for you, yeah, people are telling me, yeah, move your head, jab, jab. I understand it, but I just know as soon as I touch this guy, he's gonna feel it. And if this doesn't work, if you weren't focused on those other things, that's that's where I think Berlanga's frustration came out on that.
I mean, that's normal, right? Like, if you're a human being and you see a result and the result works and the result gets you $1 million or a ton of money, why wouldn't you think that way? You're like, okay, I have to kind of think all this stuff, but when I land this thing, everyone loves it, right?
Yes.
And we saw that last night with King Rai. King Rai can't cut the ring off. He's following my man Tago around the ring. And all he's doing is looking for power punches. He's throwing a very low output of punches for a young fighter. He's not setting punches up. And when he landed the right hand, what was the first thing that happened? He stepped in, lost his distance. And I think that a lot of people, with Ryan being put on that level with guys like Devin Haney, who I think is a very, very elite fighter, Kambosos elite fighter, Teofimo, he's not passing the eye test the way that even guys like Tank, who people can question his resume, you can't question it the way they look in the ring. With Ryan, there's still a lot of stuff. I feel like he still feels like a prospect or a fringe contender compared to these other guys that look like stars for what you just pointed out. He does a lot of going on walks with fighters. He just follows them around the ring. Where do you want to go, bro? I'll just follow you.
Yeah. Got to work on that. Speaking of Garcia, he's going to be interesting too. He can't take another. He wants to be in the mix. He needs to be more and more active. You guys talked about this on your last show too. It's not like it's past couple of years he's just been living off the popularity, but in the ring, that's just going to catch up to you. So this year he needs to fight. Still, it's only April right now. He needs to fight at least one more time this year. I know this era, the superstars only fight once or twice a year, but for him to get back into the mix, he needs to try to get at least two more, maybe one in August and another one in December or something like that, just to get realistically back in the mix. I know socially he's in the mix, but realistically back in the mix of
Well,
contention.
that was our conversation, right? Does he just want to be a star? Is it like going to see Katy Perry? And are we going to a concert? It's like, it's Ryan Garcia. I'm gonna bring a girl with me.
Yeah,
You follow him. He's really hot, right? Let's see him
yeah.
knock someone out. Or are you saying, I want to be like Sugar Ray Leonard? I
Mhm.
want to be like Ray Robinson. I want to be like all these great fighters. And I want to not just because this is a big thing. Do you want to be in compared to the greats,
Mhm.
or do you want to make money? Because that's two different things potentially. You could make a ton of money, but don't
Mhm.
mention your name amongst the greats if that's your
Mhm.
path.
And speaking of that, if he like not he's not skill wise compared to Oscar De La Hoya, but like if he can focus on the boxing part and be up there and legitly be in the conversation with those best guys with his social media status, that financially will help him boost him up even more. So that's what he should be
Well, my
focused
man
on.
Cedric, not to step over your toes on your show, but I just did it, is that in this age, you don't need talent. You just got to be hot. That's what an influencer is. So you don't have to have talent. You just got to be hot.
You're
So
right.
now
You're
it's
right.
like he is the Oscar De La Hoya of now because people don't even know who the gold medalists in the Olympics are. They know the
Mhm.
hot people. So it's like in this era, you don't have to be talented to be notable. So when people laugh that he's like De La Hoya, I say he's exactly like De La Hoya because we live in an era where we don't reward talent. We don't reward accomplishment. We just reward, are you hot? Are you willing to do something shocking and jarring to get lots of people to tune in?
Mhm.
That is our new currency of talent.
You're right. You're right. Because something as pure and just off the top of my head, because I was just listening, you brought it up the other day. Um, One of the most greatest boxing displays that nobody talks about was what Rigondeaux did to Donaire. But, most people, the narrative behind that is that it was a boring fight, but man, the way that Rigondeaux just simply dismantled Donaire still in his prime is one of the most underrated boxing displays of a fight that
And then it was slandered. All
yeah,
these writers are going,
exactly.
"Oh my god, this was a," and it's like it's for a pure boxing standpoint. You have a guy who's naturally littler than one of the biggest punchers historically at this weight class, and
Mhm.
Regan Diao puts forth one of the most elaborate master boxing classes ever.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
basically,
yeah,
American media said this guy's awful, and
yeah.
it like, and I feel like it was because people didn't understand what he was doing and people had lazy narratives.
Mhm.
That one night killed
Yeah.
Rigan Diao's career because from the network to the writers, no one tried to explain this is elite level boxing because
Mhm.
he's stepping over. This is how you teach kids to box, is
Yes.
what he's doing. And he's mixing it with high level athleticism and a
Mhm.
ton of power. And
Yeah.
what he is doing might look boring, but it's actually the highest form of the sport.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's almost like people don't realize how good you have to be to make it look that easy. Like, if you think about it, these two guys have, they've been training for weeks to fight each other. This guy's been training. Donaire is one of the best at the time, was considered pound on the pound for pound list. He's been training, working his ass off, and you make it look so easy that for some people it's boring to watch. Like, do you realize what level you have to be for that, for that them to come up with that? Anyways, getting lost in the shuffle. My bad. I don't know how much time you got. I'm taking all your whole
So no,
morning.
it's all good. We got about like 10, 12, 13 minutes, but just keep going. When till I gotta go, you got me.
Cool, cool, cool. We'll go through Lubin and Fundora real quick, and we still got Harrison and Garcia. Um, Lubin and Fundora. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that from Mr. Fundora. I thought what he did to Lubin, the way he did it, I thought that style of fighting for him was going to be his downfall. That was my assumption, and it turns out that's actually his number one skill. And if he actually decided to actually use his reach, if he actually decided to use his reach when his advantage looks like it's actually fighting on the inside, I don't know. I don't know what people are gonna how people are gonna deal with him. Um, Going through the scorecard real quick. I gave Lubin the first round. He got dropped in that second round with a weird angle uppercut from a 6'4" person. That's what I mean, man. Like, how do you prepare for that? A tall person that wants to fight on the inside, because just mentally that messes with you. You would think ideally, yeah, the person has a tall, long reach, yeah, get on his insides and break him down like that. But with Fundora, that's actually his strength. So I don't know. That was that was something else. I really respect the way Lubin was trying to fight, though. I still, even though he was getting touched up, I gave him round 6 and 7. There's actually lots of close rounds. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds marked as close rounds. Anyways, I'll come back to myself. You go ahead. What was your analysis of that?
So first round, I thought that was Lubin. Second round, that 45 De La Hoya punch was the knockdown, 10-8 Fundora. I thought Lubin had a good bounce back round 3. I thought
Time
Fundora.
out. Do you think that was, you said that De La Hoya uppercut? You just give me a quick flashback, kind of when he dropped the Vargas.
Yeah.
That uppercut. Yes.
I feel like I felt like Fundora does a lot of tape study on De La Hoya with like those little inside combinations because it reminded me of De La Hoya. Fourth round, I thought was Fundora. Fifth round, I thought was Fundora. 6, 7 was 7 the round that Lubin dropped him. So that was a swing. And then I had Fundora winning 8, but around 7 and 8, I actually around 6, the end of 6, and then 7 and 8. It felt like Fundora was content to lose rounds to just really make Lubin have to use his energy. And I felt like if I was around or observing or anyone asked my opinion, it would have been like Lubin needed to kind of pick his shots and conserve energy, because it felt like Fundora was really making an effort to be like, if I maybe don't throw as much, but just stay in his face, he's going to really use up a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what led to 9. And I think, honestly, they were really going to 10, 11, and 12 to try to punish Lubin, and the corner stopped it at 9, which it reminded me of when I forget the fighter's name, but he fought Ali Akhmedov, Golovkin's friend. And JB, Jonathan Banks, was like, this dude's been saving himself for the last round. And the guy knocked out Ali in the last round. It felt like Fundora was going to have some big late rounds, that he was just throwing away rounds, going for the knockout.
Yeah. That's another much respect to Lubin's for coach and corner for throwing in the towel, because they, like I said, a lot of you hear a lot of coaches and fighters say they'd rather go out in their shield, which is the craziest thing I always say to myself, because there's no coming back from permanent brain damage. So much respect to Lubin's corner for throwing in a towel. If you notice, some people threw some ice in Lubin's corner. I forget his coach, Kevin Cunningham, for throwing in, because they were mad. But you got to understand, you got to think about the guy's life, not just about his career. Anyways, going back to the fight, round 7 was very interesting because I had it. I said it was almost, even though Lubin didn't go down, that should have been almost scored as a 10-8 round for Fundora until he got dropped. So I scored it actually 10-9 for
and he got dropped because he was getting aggressive. He got caught because he was hanging out, and then Lubin started going wah.
Yeah. Lubin, he showed heart, man. He showed heart because he could have packed in a lot earlier. So much credit to him. I gave Lubin rounds 6 and 7. I marked them as close rounds. They weren't clear. I just gave him those rounds there. But again, and I'm just thinking from a coach's perspective, that is a puzzle that I really would need to sit down and figure out a game plan for, because
I mean, just get Willie Nelson into camp. Like we've seen Fundora before. It's like you need to find guys. Jamonte Clark had some of the answers, who fought my good friend Aaron Coley on this card, and for some reason they decided not to televise it. I'm not sure why you'd want to have 2 world level fighters not televised, but that's another story. Jamonte Clark might be a guy, but let's act like we haven't seen Fundora called Paul Williams. Let's act like we haven't seen Fundora called Willie Nelson. We always have these guys where the visual illusion of their size overshadows what they bring to the fight. if Fundora fought at distance, he'd be a very vulnerable fighter. His mentality is to come forward, and he's going to basically be really good. And until he's not, he's going to be a guy who's, when he's young, he's going to win off of size and youth. And then one day it's probably not going to work. And that's his career. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I.
He's still young too. He's in his early 20s. Pretty sure. Fundora.
I mean, he has to be, man. If he's
Yeah.
what, 6 foot some odd and he's almost my weight, I mean, we're not looking at a guy pushing 30 if that's the case.
No. And so where do both guys go from here? Lubin, he was on a good streak, but this is one of the losses. You need not just a couple months off, maybe take a year off, let everything heal up properly. Still be in the gym. I'm not saying don't be in the gym, but no sparring for a while. Let everything heal up. Let that brain heal up.
He's got to decide if he still wants to do this, because he's taken 2 different really bad losses. One is about as humiliating as you can have, and then this one was about as brutal. So Lubin is a guy that I think he reminds me of Amir Imam, where it's like we all thought that he was going to be super good, and now there's a lot of doubts that are going to be like, can he take a punch? And it's like, well, another way of looking at it is maybe Charlo and Fundora are Hall of Famers, and he just ran into 2 Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
But people in boxing are not loyal. And the minute they think that the kid's done, you're going to hear whispers, well, I don't think he can take a punch. Well, I don't think he's that. I think what he needs to do is he needs to find the people that truly love him, sit and decide what he wants to do, and then just set some goals. Because now every fight he takes is going to be a hard fight. He's not going to get rebuilt. Boxing is very heartless that way.
Yeah.
He's going to have to beat one of these kids that people invest a lot of money in.
Yeah.
And he's fully capable of doing it, because when he was an amateur, he's a badass.
Yeah. He's I think his biggest Lubin's biggest challenge is going to be himself mentally. Just looking at himself in the mirror and just making sure he still has that confidence that he can perform at that highest level. Again, only 2 losses. All his wins are great. But only 2 losses, but there were some seriously
as bad of knockouts as you can get. Dropped in the first round brutally and doing a funny dance, and then getting stopped in the corner with disconfiguring injuries to your face. I was just thinking about like the way he looked after that fight. Imagine you show up to your friend's house party or something on a Saturday night, and they look at you and you're messed up, and you go, I look okay. And I was thinking like it would be in a video game if I'm in a mirror or I'm talking to someone, and then they cut to the way you look, and that you're beat up because the person's like, oh, you look fine. You're not like, when you really get beat up and people don't want to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
That's how I pictured Lubin feeling.
Yeah. Right about this time, waking up this morning, it's like, man, so. Okay, now for Mr. Fundora, where does he go from here? Like 5 minutes.
Just big fights. Whatever the big fight is, whatever. How about him versus Tim Tszyu? Let's make real fights like we used to get on HBO. Let's put 2 guys we say are really good fighters, and let's put them in the Thunderdome. And then let's actually get a guy that's a legitimate star. Let's not gift these guys millions and start them. How about they fight each other? If they lose, they can come back. We won't. I don't know. Maybe that's just a wild idea.
I always remind people, Leonard and Hearns fought each other when they were early 20s, still went on to have great Hall of Fame careers, so.
Well, let's bring pride back to boxing. Let's actually have some guys that want to be the toughest guy out there. I get making money is good, but like this is a sport built on bullying and being a badass. So maybe we should have a couple of guys that are like cowboys that are like, I want to be the most feared. Yeah. It would be a little refreshing as someone that consumes about 10 to 11 hours of boxing every week. And then when the fight's over and I'm putting so much of my life into it, and they're like, man, I just can't wait to make money. And I'm like, well, I'm not really making much money. This is just something I love.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the fighter that's just saying, give me a paper bag and I'll pick any name out of it and fight them.
Exactly. Legacy. What did you say? You mentioned, because I heard it too, what Mike Tyson said.
I gotta run. So
it's all good. Thank you very much, Loopy. Thank you. YouTube, Twitter. Make sure you guys follow him.
Don't follow
Like,
me, follow Cedric. He's got a great insight. If you like me, I will be back with longer times. Don't worry about following me. Cedric Sports Training, great source, really good breakdowns. Love the show. Tune in. This is your man, Lukey.
thank you, thank you. Peace, peace.